I'm going to assume that it's safe to say that there's probably times when you struggle during the process.
Oh, yeah. You always do. You have to struggle.
I mean, we talked about a little bit about that moment.
Yeah.
But what about the moments when it's not necessarily working? Or when,
it's awful.
When you're not like when you have those moments.
Terrible.
I mean, beyond just knowing that experience will eventually bring it. Like,
well, sometimes, and then sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
And then sometimes it just doesn't work.
Right.
When there's nothing. Yeah.
In those moments.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, here's a good story. I was in a famously bad production of Hedda Gabler early in my career, where I played Thea. Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. It was everything about it. Nothing worked. It was just, and there's nothing worse than being in a classic play on Broadway that's failing, because you feel like you're injecting the beast that is the classical theater with a deadly virus. I mean, you feel like you're contributing to the death of the theater. It's just awful.
Hedrick Gibson is rolling over in his grave.
Oh boy. Oh, and how. So I called Joanne Woodward, who I'd worked with, and I was like, can you please come see this? It's not good. I need your help. I need your advice. Help me out. She says, of course. So she came and she sat through 3 hours of a really bad production of Hedda Gabler. And then someone knocked on my dressing room door afterwards and said, Miss Woodward's in her car and she'll meet you there. I was like, okay. So I got in her car. She's like, hello, darling. How are you? She did not talk about the play, not a thing. We got to her apartment, up in the elevator, sitting down. She got me some tea, still not saying anything. And then she sat down. She goes, well, there's nothing you can do. And I was absolutely, I felt like a train had hit me. I was like, what do you mean there's nothing I can do? There's got to be something I can do. You're Joanne Woodward. Tell me what to do. And she said, you just have to get through it. She said, sometimes things just don't work. And because the foundation is bad, because the combination of people don't work well together, because, it's a whole combination. Things really do have to be aligned properly. So I thought, okay, so I can either feel like I'm being flayed alive every night. What it felt like was going to the theater and someone handed me a glass of sand and said, drink up. That's what it felt like every night. And it was just awful. And anyway, so when you're in those moments, which happen and which will happen to every actor, if you're lucky enough to have a big enough, a long enough career, because it will happen, is what do you do during that period of time? So I decided, all right, so tonight I'm going to pretend that my ears are 3 feet big. The next night I pretended that my eyelashes were extended out 4 feet. So you start doing something to keep your energy going so that you don't give up. There's nothing worse than giving up. Then I can spot a bored actor or a disgruntled, bitter actor a mile away on stage. You can just see it. So it's to fight against that.
Going through the motions.
Yeah, they're just disheartened and humiliated, and they just give up.
So the good news for my companies that I invest in is, if it's not going well, you can always just say,
yeah, this isn't working.
That's right. You've got to make it to the end of the run.
Well, you do if if that's your code.
Yeah.
A lot of people will bail.
I have seen
and
that
and I
twice.
understand bailing, but it's you in the theater. It's not just about you. It's really not.
So I'm going to go beyond just struggling. What about mistakes? Right? I think there's always a risk if you're trying something new. Right?
Sure.
At the same time, you could argue that you don't really move forward without trying and sometimes failing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So you mentioned your own kind of personal experimentation, but how do you feel about making mistakes, especially mistakes that are kind of in the public eye?
Well, it's just sort of an inherent part of the whole deal.
Yeah.
Human beings make mistakes, and you can sort of get on the wrong road and go down a road very, very far. And hopefully you'll catch yourself before you realize, I have to redo this in my mind. Right. I have to erase this all and start over. Yeah. And that's happened to me a few times.
So that's the thing that I'm particularly interested about is what you learn from your mistakes, right? And how you kind of rejigger and how fast you catch yourself and think about that.
And I usually get into that. I'm usually in trouble there if I've started out being too knowing. If I think I know, if I think I have the answers that I don't really have, that I don't follow my own advice, actually, that's when I get into trouble.
Right.
When for whatever reason I think I understand something when I really don't, where I really haven't taken the time, where I haven't also knitted my work to everyone else who I'm working with. Some actors can be very isolated in their work, and unless it's completely tied to everyone else you're working with, it's not going to, okay, but you're alone acting in a vacuum, and the story's not going to be told. So it's usually one of those basic things that's a little off. That usually has to do with ego, quite frankly.
Right.
That usually has to do with you're getting ahead of yourself.
Out of balance. Too much id, not enough super ego.
Yeah.
Not enough listening to your inner voice.
Yeah. And sort of not enough surrender.
I love this concept of surrender. You seem to bring it so effortlessly to the discussion.